Two Spanish journalists among three killed in ambush in Burkina Faso. The journalists were filming a documentary about anti-poaching activities in Western African nation when their convoy was ambushed. Two Spanish journalists making a documentary about anti-poaching efforts and a third foreign national were killed in Burkina Faso after being kidnapped there on Monday, according to the authorities from the Western African nation and Spain. The killings come at a time when increasing violence in Burkina Faso and deteriorating security situation in the Sahel, especially in the border area of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. Burkina Faso has seen attacks from many armed groups, several of them linked to the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. Attackers on motorbikes have stormed countless villages, forcing residents to convert to Islam and sometimes killing them even when they do. Others have ambushed military patrols and killed members of the armed forces, and hundreds of schools have been forced to close because of the violence. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez of Spain on Tuesday confirmed the deaths of the two Spanish journalists when he identified on Twitter as David Berian and Roberto Fraile. The third victim remained unidentified as of Tuesday night. The two journalists were part of a group of 40 who were ambushed on Monday in a nature reserve in eastern Burkina Faso near the border with Benin, and said Archana González, Spain's foreign minister. The authorities in Burkina Faso said in a statement on Tuesday evening that the country had faced a resurgence of terrorist acts since Sunday and that around 10 people had been killed in several attacks. 6 people were injured in the ambush in the convoy on Monday, and a Burkina soldier was still missing on Tuesday evening. The fate of the others in the convoy and the identities of those who carried out the killings were unclear. The eastern part of Burkina Faso, particularly around the city of Fada Ngormo, near the reserve near the journalists were abducted, has for several years been a perilous area because of the armed groups operating there. Last year was the deadliest for militant Islamic violence in the region, according to the Africa Center for Strategic Studies, a U.S. Defense Department research institution. About 4,250 people were killed, a 60% increase over 2019, with the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara linked to more than half of the deaths. On Tuesday, United Nations said a record high of 29 million people were in need of humanitarian assistance and protection in 6 countries of the region, among the Burkina Faso and Chad, where killings the President Idris Deby last week could further destabilize the region. Mr. Deby, who had a poor human rights records, was a key figure in the regional efforts to fight off Islamic insurgents in alliance with French and African forces. About 1,200 Chadian troops were deployed this year in the border area between Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, where Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb has made significant strides. In Burkina Faso, violence has fueled a fast-growing displacement crisis, with more than 1 million people fleeing their homes since 2019, according to the United Nations Humanitarian Affairs. 3 million people in need of humanitarian assistance in a country with a population of 20 million. Mr. Berian, 43, had reported from Afghanistan, Congo, Iraq and Libya, among other places, according to the region's Spanish newspaper La Di Galicia, for which he worked for 6 years. He also directed a documentary about the nuclear disaster in Fukushima, Japan, and the film he was working on in Burkina Faso was scheduled to air on Movistar, a Spanish television channel. Thank you.